Well, good day to you. It is March the 16th, and I hope wherever you are having a wonderful day. My name is Gary Willing. I want to welcome you to Search for Signs and point out if you're new, remind you if you've heard these videos before, that if you have any questions about what we talk about here, the best thing to do is to try to get those questions answered yourself. Now, I have no problem trying to answer questions if you want to ask me that. In fact, I encourage people to ask questions. But if you are somebody who doesn't like to comment, doesn't want to put their name out there, you can get your questions answered by simply going to the description portion of these videos and checking out the websites that I provided links for. And there's a lot of different types of websites that talk about this information in some way to kind of piece it together for you so you can see if there's any truth to it even. And that goes also for people who have heard these videos before. You know, you can always learn more about it. I'm always studying this information myself, and I talk about it nearly every day. So hopefully you'll look into it too. Now, if you want to join the discussion, you can post your comments. You can post your question in the comments section. You can email me at searchforsigns@mail.com if you have something you want to say to me more in private. You can even join the discussion on Facebook. But Smoke Doja had some questions he wanted me to try to answer. James Wambidi, Raw Z33, Ricardo Pelsuesali, Ray Ray, Zach Laney, Johnny Gregory, and Belinda Turner. All right. Thank you guys for your comments and your questions. All right. So let's start with Smoke Doja because his spurred the most discussion by his questions. So, when is Maitreya supposed to come up from Shambhala, the White Lodge in tow? And I asked for clarification on this to elaborate, because when I read it, I didn't really understand what he was trying to ask. And then I kind of thought back on it a little bit, and I was, oh, that's what he's trying to say. So to truly answer your question, honestly, so when is Maitreya supposed to come up from Shambhala? Never. So there you go. There's no truth to anything that you just asked. Now, Maitreya is already in the world. He's already living among all of humanity. Now, most people haven't recognized him because he does not look like, he's not talking like anything that people are expecting him to do. And so the expectations that the religious folks have of their awaited teacher coming back are all symbolic. They're not actually literally going to happen. So if you're looking for Jesus to come back in the clouds as a confirmation of your beliefs, you're going to be looking for a long time because it's never going to happen like that. But he's already in the world. He's been speaking to humanity directly on the TV. Now, there are some other masters that right before he entered London on July 19th, 1977, entered their centers. One in New York, one in London, apart from Maitreya, one in Geneva, one in Darjeeling, and one in Tokyo. And then several others, probably not long after Maitreya entered London, entered their centers. One in Rome, one in Moscow. There's a couple more in the United States, apart from the one in New York. There's one in LA and San Francisco. There's another master in Beijing. Now, none of these masters will declare themselves as masters, will be known as masters, will be seen as masters until Maitreya has declared himself as Maitreya on the day of declaration. It won't happen. And then more and more masters will start to be introduced. They'll come out. They'll start to help humanity if humanity asks for their help, in different areas of human life, whether it's economics, politics, spiritual teachings, or even things like arts and architecture and city planning and those kind of things. So there's a lot of different parts of human life that these masters will be looked to and asked questions and how to do it. Humanity will have to we'll have to do it ourselves. These masters won't do anything but just guide and inspire humanity to do it. But let's get on to the next thing that you had to say. Because when I asked for clarification, you said, at Search for Signs, then you haven't really learned about Maitreya. Blavatsky and Hitler spoke about him. He's supposed to rise from Shambhala, a city underneath the Himalayas. Benjamin Creme wasn't the first person to speak about Maitreya and the White Lodge he leads. The New Age movement, Bailey, Parsons and Crowley, etc., have been speaking on him for almost 200 years. Surprised you follow him like he's your daddy, but don't know this. ... Well, first of all, don't ever end a sentence in a preposition. That's what my English teacher told me way back in the day. So don't end it with this. Yeah, of course Benjamin Creme wasn't the first person to speak about Maitreya. The first person to speak about Maitreya was actually Gautama Buddha, 500 years before Jesus came on the scene. He predicted that around this time would come another Buddha like himself by name Maitreya, who would inspire and galvanize humanity to build a brilliant golden civilization based on righteousness and truth. So when I met Benjamin Creme in the 90s, he was already an old man, but he wasn't that old. And as for Hitler and Crowley and Parsons, but let's just leave it at Hitler, right? Speaking about Maitreya. So, you know what I'm saying? He probably spoke about Jesus. Most Nazis, even to today, most neo-fascists consider themselves to be Christian. Following a teacher that spoke of nothing of love, or consider themselves to be followers of a teacher, considering themselves. They're not even following the actual teachings of Jesus, but consider themselves to be followers of a teacher that said, those who live by the sword shall die by the sword. But yet, they are convinced, like everybody else, that they have Jesus in their pocket. And if you look at all the 5 major religions, Buddhism, Judaism, Islam, Hinduism, and Christianity, every single one of those religions, if you tallied up all the deaths that were caused by people who think that they are, consider themselves to be a follower of whatever religion that is, Christianity is at the top. Over the last 2,000 years, more people have died because of those people who claim to be Christian than any of the other religions. Even Islam, even radical Islam, pales in comparison to the number of deaths that, as a result of people who claim to be a Christian. But did Hitler talk about Maitreya? Yeah, probably. Did he talk about Jesus? Yeah, probably. Did he talk about FDR and Churchill and Neville Chamberlain and other people? Probably. Doesn't make them evil. It just means he was talking about them. I don't know. I mean, even if he wrote it in one of his books, I don't know. I got about a third of the way through Mein Kampf and I was like, this sucks. So I just put it down and that was about the end of it. And I just read it from a historical perspective. I don't speak German, so anytime he was on the podium, smacking the podium around, I doubt he ever used the name Maitreya for anything, but if he did, okay. Doesn't mean anything. And if you look at neo-fascists today, if you look at what's going on in the United States today with the political right talking about Jesus and how they claim to be followers of Jesus, but yet nothing that they're saying, none of their policies are remotely even close to what Jesus talked about. They're speaking about a Jesus that's an ideology. They're not even talking about the real teachings of Jesus, let alone the real Jesus, but they claim it to be Jesus. That's why I've always thrown this as a question out to people. Which Jesus are you referring to when you refer to Jesus, when you talk about Jesus? There's a billion different views of Jesus, literally, and they're not all the same. They don't all agree. Not every Christian agrees upon what the view of Jesus is. Same thing probably with Maitreya up until the time that we actually see Maitreya. So it means absolutely nothing if Hitler spoke about Jesus. None. Or spoke about Maitreya or anything else. So hopefully that puts that to rest. All right. And good luck trying to find any references that he spoke about it. But anyway, if you did, like I said, even if you found, let's just throw it out there, you found a reference of Hitler talking about Jesus. Who cares? I'm saying? It means nothing. He used his beliefs in the occult, twisted it, moved it around, perverted it, just the same way that, the Crusaders did for their beliefs back in the Middle Ages, just as George W. Bush. I mean, there's so many examples of people using their beliefs, mainly Christian, but same thing with Muslim, same thing with Hindu, right? And even Judaism, to twist it and move it and to make it seem like whatever they're doing, whatever violence they're putting upon somebody, another group of people, they use that to justify it. And there's no reference in the Bible where Jesus said it's okay to attack another country with impunity. It never said it. But yet, the George W. Bush presidency was under the illusion that they were being inspired by God. Go figure, So anyway, but I do appreciate your question nonetheless. All right, now. Let me swing over to Johnny Gregory, and then I'll get to Ray's comment. I seem to remember Benjamin Creme saying in the future that the currency used to replace by a sophisticated form of barter, which in my view could be cryptocurrencies. These decentralized control and and the master DK and Alice Bailey said something about the future will see decentralizing of governments and finances with more of a shared cooperation. This could happen with cryptocurrencies. I guess it could. Every time I mention cryptocurrency in a video, there's all these trolling comments that come up about investing in it. And I'm not encouraging anybody to invest in cryptocurrency. It might even be more blockchain than cryptocurrency because there's other parts of blockchain than just the currency aspect of it. But I've had the same thought myself, I guess. But anyway, all right, so Ray, what'd you have to say? Okay, let's try this. Gary, I'm a master. You are? No, I'm just kidding. Now, I would like you to give me an account of everything you own, and I will decide what you don't need and can be distributed to those that need it. Continue to go to work and create an excess, and I will continue to give it away. Truth is, you would wise up fast and not work as much as you have just what you need. Okay, I love this concept, but it's not practical. Okay, so yes, exactly what you're thinking is not practical. Here's the rub. Exactly what you're thinking is not the principle of sharing. So I'm trying to keep it as simple as I possibly can. There is nothing in any of what Maitreya is talking about in terms of the principle of sharing that is what you're saying. Now, I was accused of scolding somebody in the last video, so I don't want to be accused of it again. So this has nothing to do with what you personally write. But as a general rule, when people first hear about the principle of sharing, their first thought is about themselves because we're basically selfish. I'm not saying you're 100% selfish. I'm just saying that that's basically what it is, especially when it comes to finances, right? That's like it's almost the most selfish that people get is when it comes to their money. They might be selfless in other areas of their life, but when it comes to that, oof. Now, I did pick out an article that I want to read coming from Benjamin Creme's Master. The first, I was looking through trying to find the article, A Case for Sharing, and then I stumbled across this other one about leisure time. And leisure is the key. And I've read this before, okay, but I want to talk about it in reference to your comment because what's not practical is what's going on today, where the system is set up to where the money goes up to the very top and they keep it at the expense of everybody else. And there are people all over the world that aren't working. They want to work, but they can't work because they don't have the work. And my wife's from the Philippines, and you can't just, in her town, work a 40-hour work week and make enough money to live. It's impossible. Now, there are people who do it, but they are, even from our standards, they would be poor. From their standards, they're doing pretty well. But they don't have a lot, right? But I'm saying there are people in these parts of the world that have literally nothing. It's not that they're lazy. It's not that they have a lack of accountability. It's because there's not any work available for them. Now, the other thing, too, to think about, and this is just from a mainstream news perspective, is what is coming right down the road is AI, automation. That's going to put so many people out of work. I just was watching a Sadhguru video of all things, and he was talking about AI. And he said that they already have this now where you have a artificial intelligence software program to design your own house for the future based on budget, based on style and design and location and all that kind of stuff. It gives you all these different options, all these different styles and interior designs. You can even put paintings on the wall, and then there will be 3D printing that will actually make it for you. This is already in the works. That will be here in the next 5 to 10 years. That will put out the vast majority of construction workers. That will put out of work interior designers. It will put out of work probably people at the bank who are used to doing some of those things. Put them all out of work. Then what? Then what are you going to do? If all you're used to doing is carpentry, now what? Right? If you are a truck driver, right, and that's what your job was, that was your vacation, that's what you're used to doing, that's maybe what you love to do. There's basically going to be, driverless trucks in the future. That will put a vast majority of them out of work. Now what? You see where I'm getting at? And then there's other industries that are based off of these other industries that people will be put out of work to where a vast majority of the workforce will be out of work. Then what? The governments of the world, the way the system is today, would basically just tell half the people, piss off to the end of time. What is that going to do? They're not going to just go and sit on an iceberg and die. They have a life to live. Do you see what I'm saying? So practically, it's getting to be more and more impractical the way things are today. So I understand your concept of you work, you want everybody else to work. I get it. Right? Saying, I love my job. And I actually enjoy going to work every day. Sometimes it might be a little difficult and, those kind of things. But for the most part, overall, I really enjoy it. I get a satisfaction out of working. And there are people that come in that don't work as hard as me and expect me to give them food and all those kind of things. And they want me to give them food, or they want me to help them and those kind of things. They should maybe take some more accountability for themselves. But globally, we're moving into a world, and even my job, I can't see my job per se being rooted out by AI, but who knows? My company's already talking about using AI in different areas of the company. Maybe they're going to phase my position out in the future. I don't know. So, the thing that I've also noticed, because I train people for my job, and most of the people that come into my job are younger kids, the Gen Zers, some millennials, but the Gen Zers, even the millennials are getting older. You know what I'm saying? But in my generation, the Gen Xers had a little bit of this in them too. Maybe not quite as much as the Gen Zers do, but it is a cosmic law that every generation that comes into incarnation has the experience and the knowledge and the ability to handle the challenges of the future. And the challenge of the future is unemployment. And if you look at most of these kids, they don't want to work in the way that our grandparents wanted to work. They don't want that. So what is the future looking like? Now, it could be scary for those people who don't know what's coming around the corner because they think that they're going to be left out of work, unemployed, lose their house, lose their car, not be able to find food, not be able to have a life, those kind of things. But that's not what's coming around the corner. What's coming around the corner is nations, because of their own survival, people's own survival will depend on whether we do the principle of sharing or not. That the principle of sharing, when Maitreya finally presents this as an option, as the alternative to what we're doing, he's also going to say that if we do not accept the principle of sharing, there will be no life on this planet, period. So whether we like it or not, or whether we intellectually banter about it in our head, like, well, this is good, it's practical or not, what you're thinking the principle of sharing is, Ray, is not the principle of sharing. That's not it at all. Has nothing to do with it. The principle of sharing has to do with nations giving of resources that are just sitting there wasting away. Not giving all the resources to another country, but giving it to countries that need it. Now, here's the thing. It's not a one-way thing. Every nation has a resource that they are in excess of that they can give back to another country in payment for what they took. It is that sophisticated form of bartering that Johnny Gregory was talking about. That's what he was talking about. So nations like the United States, let's say, have steel or wood or concrete or something that another nation might need. Well, that nation might have something that another nation needs. So it's a sophisticated form of bartering. They don't have to necessarily give it to that country in payment for it. They could give it to another country in payment for what they take. Smaller nations would be able to take, would need to take less than other larger countries with more population and more people. But the goods of the world are for the world. They're not for the corporations to keep them. They're not for countries to hoard them. And it's creating an unjust, impractical situation right now that won't last much longer. And I love the fact that you're thinking about this. I love the fact that you're trying to work this out, because this is the process. But what you're thinking, I'm telling you, you're digging in the wrong spot. It has nothing to do with sharing. The masters will never, ever, ever go into anybody's account and take money out of their account. They won't even go into another country and pull that out and give it to the other country. That country would have to give it of it willingly. And so they will be, some countries I'm sure that will be eager to give their excesses. Other countries might be the exact opposite. But eventually they'll start to see the fruits of the principle of sharing, and then they will eventually start to do it themselves. And again, I always put this as a disclaimer. If you want to know a historical perspective on the principle of sharing, read more about the Marshall Plan, because that's exactly what it was. It just didn't happen very long, and it wasn't globally. But the people of the United States, it didn't affect their life other than it created an economic boom after the principle of sharing ended, when the nations that took the resources gave back the resources in payment. But it didn't create communism in the United States. It didn't create even socialism, unfortunately. And it didn't create any kind of collapse, economic collapse in the United States because of it. None. It stabilized Europe. Europe has not gone through another world war like it did in the early 1900s because the principle of sharing took place. It would have gone back into another war because it was not stable after World War II. That was the gift of the Marshall Plan. It also created a measure of peace, just a measure of peace between those nations, which is all that's really needed right now to solve the problems like the environment. That's it. So, like I say, what you're thinking is not the case. The other thing, too, is, and this is my last point before I read the Master's article, is humanity is not destined to be laborers. You know, the way that we see it right now. That's the old system. What we're destined to be is truly creative divine beings, which because of automation, because of AI and those kind of things, will help to free humanity up from the drudgeries of just regular everyday work and be able to be creative. But the challenge of that is going to be met by the newer generations, which right now are pissing the older generations off because they don't want to work. But what does it mean? What does it really mean? And this is why I want to read this article, because I think that maybe this will shed some light on it. I don't know. But Leisure is the Key by Benjamin Creme's Master. Among the many problems with which humanity is faced, none looms larger in men's minds than that of unemployment. In the developing world, millions have never known regular work, while even the industrialized nations see each year the workless total inexorably mount. Quote, men must work or starve, unquote, says the age-old adage. Yet, need this necessarily be so? Without doubt, the main reason for increasing unemployment is the discovery and application of the new technology. More and more, the robot is replacing man in the more complex manufacturing processes. No man can compare in speed of operation and repetitive accuracy with the sophisticated machineries now in use. This is as it should be. Many may lament the loss of human skills earned through long apprenticeships and training, but man is born for higher and more worthy efforts. Why should men compete with mere machines? Man is involving God, and foolish would it be to place a limitation on his creative possibilities. Not there is, which with time he may not do. Why then lament the passing of a stage in men's long journey to perfection, which allows him at last the leisure to expand and grow? Man stands now on a threshold of a new perception of himself, his purpose, and the world in which he lives. This new awareness will invoke undreamt of skills and talents which yet await expression, and allow men to enter the abode of gods. When man sees himself truly as he is, naught will prevent the manifestation of his divine powers. On all sides, this glory will be seen, lighting a path to the farthest stars. Until that blessed time, man must learn and train himself in leisure. Without leisure, man has little chance to grow. Leisure must be seen as the prerequisite for that creative thought and action which will transform all life for men. In an age of competition, the old adage holds, work alone confers the right to eat, but man is ready to experience a new relationship. A new caring of cooperation beckons him to be his brother's keeper and to safeguard the right of all to the necessities of life. More and more, machines will free men to be themselves. Leisure will ensure that each man can reach his full potential, reflective of his stage upon the journey to perfection, adding his gifts for the enrichment of the whole. Thus will men see a flowering such as none today can imagine, but which one day will show men to each other as the gods they are. Leisure is the key, and to ensure leisure men must share. Millions starve and countless more grind out their lives in hopeless poverty today. No longer must this sickness be accepted as the norm. No longer can the tensions thus engendered be supported by mankind. Entering a new age where machines will cater for the needs of all, men must share as brothers and walk together towards the dawn. Remember to take action and help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos.